welcome to our Kickstarter this Wednesday morning, the 25th of June 2025. I am Priscilla Regina Naloga, and in our Kickstarter this morning we look at Uganda's insurance sector as far as the consideration of the next year, financial year's budget is concerned. We're talking about the 2025-2026 budget, and of course aligning that budget, its priorities with the insurance sector. Backbone of it is that from the budget for the starting financial year, Minister Kasaija noted that even with almost 40% of our domestic revenue dedicated to servicing debts, there's still avenues for insurance players to innovate, to expand their market, as well as reach and contribute to the economic stability that we desire as a nation at the end of the day. The big question that lingers before us this morning is how can this be achieved? And we believe that that is a question that Mr. Magala Samuel can be able to answer. From the Insurance Training College, he is the Manager, Research and Grants. Good morning to you.
Yes, good morning.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you, Priscilla?
I'm very, very good. I'm glad that research and grants is something that is of your strength and focal area. And so you're the best person to actually speak into the budget and it being one that is intended to service some debts that we are having as a country. But my first question is, do you feel that with what the minister noted, or what he states are the priorities for us in the next financial year and how the distributions of monies has been put, does it align with the priorities of servicing debts for the country that the country has?
Yeah, I think by and large, when you look at the priorities that have been put across by the Minister of Finance, we think we as a country, we are moving in the right direction. Of course, as an insurance player, we see so many opportunities of how we can actually come into this. A few days ago, the Honorable Minister presented a budget of 72 trillion shillings. And of course, when you look at the theme, fully monetizing the economy. And for us as an insurance industry, we find that statement very rich in content, and then also opening up so many avenues for us to come and play a more critical and useful role as far as developing our economy is concerned. When you look at the key areas that you looked at, commercializing agriculture, industrialization, broadening the service industry, and of course digital transformation, those ones are actually speaking to the real priorities that we think as an insurance industry we should actually be fronting. Yeah, so for us, I think it is more of a thumbs up to the ministry. Of course, with a few hiccups here and there, when you look at the biggest, a large portion of our budget going towards debt refinancing and paying interest, I think it's a substantial part of the budget. But again, once you do, and we will focus on the priorities that the 49 trillion is going to do, I think there's a lot that we can achieve as a country. Yeah.
Well, I believe that our national budget has the potential to drive inclusive growth as far as economics is concerned. But from where you're seated, how would you define inclusive economic growth?
Yeah, of course, when you look at by inclusive economic growth, we are actually saying we don't want to leave anybody behind, be it the youth, be it the girl child, be it people in the rural areas, urban. So we are talking about inclusivity in that context. When it comes to, for example, commercializing agriculture, we'll be speaking about agriculture insurance. And when you talk about agriculture in this country, you're talking about almost 70% of the population in this country. So for us, once government is making commitments towards commercializing agriculture, for example, then for us as an insurance industry, it is our role to come in and say, okay, how can we support this process? To a typical farmer, what we are looking at, for example, if you had a bad season today, how do you bounce back? Okay? Insurance is there to actually to provide that risk mitigation mechanism. We've had situations where people have lost almost all their crop due to maybe bad weather, mainly floods. If you go, for example, to the Mbale region, I think there's a certain time when we had landslides there. So people lost full gardens. Then we've had, when you go to the Karamoja area, Karamoja region, you see people getting almost zero produce at the end of the season due to drought. So now the question is, when you look at our farmers, small as they are, for an entire season, you have nothing to show at the end of the season. How do you bounce back? So for us as insurers, we come in and say, we are there to protect you against certain such risks. So should you find yourself in such a situation, we are here to put you back in that position that you were before you incurred the loss.
All right. Yeah. Speaking of agriculture, it was one of the sectors that was heavily hit COVID-19 period. So talking post-COVID-19 period, what is your assessment of our country on a national level, our loan uptake versus our servicing of the debts that we do have? How are we performing?
Yeah, I think by and large, I would say that we were lucky in one way or the other, that despite the disruptions that came with the COVID-19, as an economy where it was easy for us to actually bounce back, because even at that time, I think there was a whole program. I think it's called the Uganda Agriculture Insurance Subsidy Scheme, where the government of Uganda had actually offered premium subsidies to all those farmers that had actually taken agricultural insurance. So with such systems in place, you find that it was easy for the typical farmer to actually bounce back. But again, also, I think when you look at some of these other programs that that government has put in place, the parish development model, the Myoga schemes, these are programs that are really trying to provide that capital to the typical farmer to be able to bounce back from the effects of COVID-19, but then from all those other effects that they may not have anticipated in the first place.
Okay. Of course, we know that priorities to the commercialization of agriculture, industrialization, the digital transformation that you talked about, but also services expansion is something else that the government is focusing on. It begs the question that in this financial year that we are starting, 2026, can the sector, the insurance sector I'm referring to here, can it be able to support as well as aid benefits to the national budget and the national priorities in those key areas?
For sure, yes. Of course, in terms of the actual impact, we may not feel it in this financial year, but if this is a journey that has been started by government, I think it is a move in the right direction. And then for us as an insurance industry, we are looking at those opportunities where we can play a more active role as far as developing the economy of this country is concerned. When we look at things like, especially digital transformation, I think it is quite important, quite key, and it is a big game changer as far as access to services is concerned. We have a very huge part of our population based in the rural areas, so it becomes extremely difficult to actually distribute any service to such a community. So, but with digitalization, it eases the process. For the case of insurance, we look at opportunities that, for example, me or an insurer not having to leave their premises, say for example in Kampala, to issue a policy to my grandmother down in Kaveramaido, okay? Because of the digital systems that are in place. And if that person is actually also to make a claim, they actually don't have to come to what we have all these mobile money systems. And once we have a proper digital transformation agenda, then it becomes quite easy for us to offer those services at a low cost, because we know one of the main hindrances, what has really hindered the insurance industry to tap into that particular market has been the high cost of distribution of those products, of the insurance products. So, but with the proper digital transformation agenda, then I think it is a move in the right direction. And then also over and above that, right now, we are talking about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has to be backed. You need data to be able to do certain things. Now, with the digital transformation, it actually makes things much easier for us as an insurance industry. And I'll give an example. Today, many of you, Priscilla, I'm certain you have an insurance policy maybe for your car, probably your car. I will give an example of a car. But when you come to an underwriter, to an insurance company, most likely they're going to ask you certain questions, and you are going to answer those questions without any form of verification. Today, with the proper digital systems in place and all the digital number plates,
you can easily trace data.
It is very easy to trace data and know that Priscilla is a very careful driver. So even in terms of premiums, I am going to charge a lesser premium because she is not a high risk customer as compared to Samuel, who drives probably Subaru. I'm always overtaking where I'm not supposed to overtake. I have so many traffic penalties. So then I become a high risk client. Then in terms of premiums, then I am definitely going to pay more because as an insurer, the level of exposure is much higher. So that is how we look at this whole process of digital transformation and how it is actually going to support us as an insurance industry to do our work better and more efficiently. Okay.
Samuel, you did make mention of the fact that you have the potential to play more active roles as the insurance sector in support for the country to benefit economically and socially. And on that note, what are those particular elements and roles in which you can actually offer support that can be activated, and at what point should they be activated?
Now, one, as an industry, we have made deliberate interventions to go micro. As we speak now, the Insurance Training College, which is the training arm of the insurance industry in Uganda, we have, in a bid to increase on insurance knowledge, we have left out. We have we have actually not left out, but we have designed now programs, training programs that are targeting people outside the insurance industry. Okay. Our mandate is to skill and professionalize.
So is that still training or education programs?
Well, our mandate cuts across both training, education, and skilling.
Okay.
Yeah, so in that case, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but we have made a deliberate attempt to go and reach out to those people, create this awareness, give them the training, and then just to make sure that they understand the concept, and it is from that point then that the agents, the people who are actually selling insurance should be able to find a more, a softer landing point for them to onboard clients.
Okay. On that note, it begs the question, what are the existing gaps that we do have that the insurance sector is seeing that can hinder what we want to achieve, especially through our national budget?
Yeah, in terms of gaps, and I really don't want to call them gaps because a gap is something that you have that is existing, and maybe there's nothing that is happening.
Okay, what would you call them?
Yeah, but in terms of what I would call them actually interventions.
Okay.
Yeah, when you look at, for example, the Insurance Regulatory Authority, the Insurance Regulatory Authority has created what they call sandboxes. And these sandboxes are really have been put in place to give an opportunity for people to innovate, test their products outside the conventional regulatory spaces. So in the sandboxes, there is what I would call a lower, kind of like a less tighter, kind of like regulation, but it is giving an opportunity to say, okay, now, I have this innovative idea, it could be a game changer, but because of the current regulations, I may not be able to operate freely. So the Insurance Regulatory Authority has created those sandboxes for people to test those products. Yeah.
Okay. When we look at the new financial budget that we're looking at, of course, we do have some educational, operational frameworks that need to be addressed for the insurance sector to be able to fully support the national development goals. Could you pinpoint for us some of those?
Yeah, for us, I think in terms of education, I think I mentioned a bit about it, that just to be selfish and just speak to specifically the insurance industry, we are saying that the way we are actually delivering the current trainings may not actually fit the common or the majority of the Ugandans. So we are saying, much as our mandate is to professionalize, to skill, to train people within the insurance industry, there is also that other market, there's also that those other Ugandans, there's also that other space that where there is a vacuum. So can we now kind of like downgrade a bit our trainings just to make sure that we have trainings that speak to that particular kind of like audience. So very soon you're going to see us in the rural areas training farmers, training boda riders, training those market vendors on what insurance is and how they can actually benefit from it. And the language that we'll be using there will be a language that actually corresponds to their circumstances. We have designed programs that are more visual than text-based. We are designing programs that are more audio. We are designing programs, short programs. I mean, most of our programs now are maybe a month, 3 months, but now we also have programs that are 2 or 3 days that are really tailored to meet or to align with the circumstances of such people. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about alignment with the national budget. Are there priorities that are aligning with the long-term vision for Uganda's insurance sector?
Sure. I mean, when you look at, I really want to upload the Minister of Finance. When you look at, for example, they have actually, previously, we've had people, what they call domestic areas, companies that have provided goods and services to government, and they have not been paid for a very long time. So previously, I think in the last year's financial budget, there was an allocation of 200 billion. In this year's budget, that has been multiplied 7 times to 1.4 trillion. Now, for us as an industry, what does that mean? They're actually, government is going to release capital that was previously idle, that they had actually held. So now it means companies are going to now be have more capital to invest, and by investing, for us as an insurance industry, we thrive with a thriving private sector. But then also over and above that, there have also been concerns that most of those people who had actually provided those services to government had actually taken bank loans. Those loans were getting bad.
Yeah.
And we have insured them.
Yeah.
So it actually means that if those loans had actually gone bad completely, as an insurance industry, we are supposed to compensate the banks. But now, here we are, and government is saying we are actually going to make good on our end, and then it, in one way or the other, also releases us of certain pressures that we are beginning to anticipate as a result of non-payment of those loans. There are situations where companies have given, insurance underwriters have given guarantees to some of these companies. So what I mean, for us, I think that is very good. But then also over and above that, again, speaking to the micro, the informal sector, in the budget, I think they've given a provision of I think a tax holiday, income tax holiday, of up to 3 years for the juakari, what I would call the small and micro enterprises. What that means, that it is giving them more freedom to actually operate it is reducing on the cost of doing business in one way or the other. And then for us as an insurance industry, if we want to go micro, then also government is actually aligning properly, because then it means such institutions or such entities will have a lot more flexibility, but then also in terms of longevity, in terms of their lifespans, because we've seen so many of them collapse within a few years of being set up. And then, but for us as an insurance industry, when we look at that as an opportunity, we are going to come in and play a more active role in as far as de-risking them is concerned.
All right, you definitely have presented a very good argument, because currently this week you do have those that had sought to give government services through, for example, the Roads Authority that was now merged into the Ministry of Works and Transport, and their debts have not yet been cleared, or the business has not yet been cleared, and they have taken loans from banks, and they have to lose property that they had put in as insurance to be able to survive the, the hiccups that do come with doing business with government. And in terms of doing business with government, then how would you encourage the private sector to safeguard themselves, especially as far as insurance is concerned?
Yeah, I think we are there as an industry. It is our role, it is our bread and butter. Yeah, to provide those mechanisms for ensuring their loans. Of course, we are not also a careless group that will go and insure anything. There's a whole process, there's a whole science. Yeah, so let's talk about that. That's what I'm trying to get to, the process and the science that they must engage in order to make sure that they are protected and their business is protected and what they are trying to achieve is also protected. Yeah, one, I think we are looking at viability of some of those investments. We are also looking at the various funding mechanisms that are in place. I know we have, for example, we have projects that are being co-financed by other development partners, and then others that are being financed by loans from different international or multilateral banks. So as an industry, we are aligning ourselves more to such investments, or to such projects. Yes. Okay.
All right. Now let's talk about Uganda's debt servicing burden. How do you see the space for public-private partnerships, especially in insurance, filling the gaps for the social protection side?
That could be a little bit far-fetched, but like I said, as an industry, there are various tools that we have in place. Beyond just underwriting, we give guarantees, okay, but we also provide financing to some of these companies. Yeah, so in terms of private public partnerships, I think it is a very fertile ground that we will consider, or most of the underwriters or the insurance players will look at considering, but it is also going to be on a case. It is usually also on a case by case basis. Yeah.
Okay. So earlier on, you had also made mention of education and how you're going to put so much in making sure that you educate, especially the informal sector.
Yes.
Are there specific strategies that you can be able to actually adopt to bridge the gap between formal insurance institutions and the informal economy? Because that one is growing leaps and bounds, and if we're going to have this digital transformation, as has been stated by the government, if it takes off, it's definitely going to increase the informal sector.
Yes. Okay, in terms of strategies, one, we are looking at a one industry kind of like approach. As the training college, we have a mandate to provide that training, but then we also have other players in the market, the Insurance Regulatory Authority, we have the Uganda Insurers Association, we have the Brokers Association, we have the Association of the Loss Assessors and Valuers. So these are all players in the industry that have a role to play as far as changing the status quo is concerned. So we are in a process of designing what we call a one industry kind of approach, whereby we do these activities in a complementary manner, okay? And then also in terms of we also do it in a very structured process. Yeah.
Okay. All right. You have also made mention of the fact that the industry is now taking the direction of microinsurance.
Yes.
Of course, I know that will come at some sort of realignment in order to achieve that. So I guess what I'm trying to ask then, how is it going to be the answer, especially for the rural informal economy, that can be able to address the uptake of insurance, or the poor uptake of insurance? Because even in urban centers, let's be realistic, Samuel, if it's not for the macro and the group and collective insurance, many of us wouldn't be in insurance, to be truthful. So if we are to talk about micro, we then have to think about it from the place of, okay, so there's the urban or the formal sector that is still having a low uptake as far as micro is concerned. How much more the rural side?
Okay, in terms of addressing that, one, we start with from the policy, because it starts from also the regulatory space. I think the Insurance Regulatory Authority is trying as much as possible to realign its policies, its regulations, to actually speak to that. I think as right now, I think there has been a directive. I'm not so sure about this, and I'm sorry if I'm making an erroneous statement. But I think the Insurance Regulatory Authority has asked all insurance companies to have a certain percentage of their premiums coming from the micro sector, from the micro products. Now, those micro products could be both urban and rural, but still you can see there's now that kind of like affirmative action that has come from the regulatory space. But then also over and above that, we also have now actuarial scientists that have gone and labored and put their brains together, and they have actually designed now micro products, because having a policy is one place is one thing, and then also having the products is another. But then over and above that, once you have the policy, you have the products, how do we then get them delivered to this rather very complex and very difficult group of people or clientele that are difficult to reach? So that is where now the digital transformation and the digital agenda actually now comes in to actually smoothen that entire process.
Okay. All right. Samuel, as we're coming to the bend of this conversation, of course, we do acknowledge that insurance plays a very key role in safeguarding investments and livelihoods by and large. And so as we're ending the conversation, I think my last question would be, what are those market shifts that you see could actually aid in deepening the trust and drive uptake as far as insurance is concerned?
One, we need to intensify the awareness. And unfortunately, we have to debunk this whole thinking that the awareness and knowledge is only a problem in the rural areas. Even when you come to corporate offices, their interpretation and their understanding of insurance is quite limited. Then two, we have also had several government programs, PDM, Myoga, and all those other programs. So we are thinking that as government is rolling out most of those programs, can it also carry the insurance component alongside with it? These funds that are being, the 1 million that is being given to each and every person, to what extent is it protected, just in case somebody received a shock or some form of turbulence, and then they're not able to actually use that money or to get to benefit from the use of that money. So how now as government do we move with the insurance industry? Yeah, just to make sure that it is actually a very good entry point for insurance.
Okay, Samuel, your closing remarks, and what's your call to action and commitment as far as the Insurance Training College is concerned?
One, I think, Priscilla, you need also to give me an opportunity to do a little bit of marketing of my institution. Yes, as the Insurance Training College, we have a mandate to professionalize, to train, to skill industry players. But not only industry players, we are now opening up and we are calling upon all those Ugandans who are interested in actually taking up a profession in insurance to come and enroll for our courses. We have courses that run throughout the entire year. But then also more importantly, to just tell you that the insurance space is quite virgin. There are so many opportunities out there, very many that are untapped. We need the young, the Gen Zs, the young generation to come in and try to catalyze. We are coming. Yeah, to catalyze that process.
Okay.
Yeah, but of course to government also we need to give a shout, a thanks to the Minister of Finance, and then I think this whole process was, we have the belief that as a country we are actually moving in the right direction.
All right. Thank you so much, Samuel Magala, who is the Manager Research and Grants at the Insurance Training College, for bringing us up to speed with the role that the insurance sector has in ensuring that they do contribute to the budgetary priorities that we do.